Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Pallian, and this is the third and final support video for extreme endurance events. The last event we're going to talk about today is Hawaii, the Alohaman Extreme Triathlon, which takes place in December. And as you may or may not know, we recently removed the mandatory restrictions we had in requiring everyone to have support for the event. And we did so because after really looking into everything for the event, we realized that there were quite a few athletes that could and wanted to do the event, but couldn't because of just the sheer cost and logistics and getting support there. And usually that's something that, although unfortunate, we have to require. We took another look at the course and realized that we could technically allow people to do this one without support. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. This video is a little bit less necessary than the other ones because there's no part of this course where support is mandatory, but for quite a few people, they're still going to have support throughout the day. So I just wanted to touch on a couple things that whether or not you have support. If you don't have support, this is good to listen to as an athlete to know what to expect and how hard your day is truly going to be. And if you do have support, then this is also good because you get to hear some of the rules and some of the expectations of your support team and how they're going to go about supporting you. And for the support that's listening, thanks. We love having support out there for a number of reasons. I'm going to talk about some of that, but let's dive in here. This is our website, extremetries.com. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Be part of our Facebook group for Alohaman athletes specifically. And then if you follow us on YouTube, you should be alerted anytime we have a new webinar such as this one that takes place. So up here at the top, as always, go to Hawaii and the drop-down menu, find support team. Now, I'm going to this assuming that by now most of you have listened to the other webinars that I've had where I've talked about course maps and the cutoffs, the mandatory gear, overall information about the event, and that you've read through the website in its entirety, especially if you're registered. If you're kind of on the fence, maybe this is the first one you've listened to. I have a bunch of other ones that we've done that are on our channel. Make sure you check those out and just read through the website. There's a ton of information on here, and really, we have mandatory briefings for these events the day before for the athletes. It's more for them to see us to see them, and to just kind of, mingle and put some stuff out there before the event. But they really shouldn't need to be mandatory. Everything we talk about in those meetings, with the exception of maybe 0.5% of the information, is on this website, is in the webinars, is on the Facebook pages, has been conveyed to people a million times over. So keep in mind that if you know the website, you know the race. And those meetings should really, just before the event, be for things that have popped up. Maybe there's some type of road construction or an outage along the way somewhere that's come up in the last day or two. In Alaska last year, there was washout. There was a little bit of road that had fallen off the side of this area, and that had to come up. So there's things like that. But in any event, support not mandatory at this event. So the questions that you'll see on this page, I'm sharing the screen. I don't know if you're watching it or listening to it, but as you scroll down, it says, do athletes need to provide their own support on the swim? No. And heck no. One, you're not really going to be able to provide them with support in the water. And it's Hawaii. It's a two-loop course. It's a nice white sand beach, nice warm temperatures. Water will be warm, air will be warm, probably somewhere between 75 to 82 degrees, okay, on both. They usually are kind of matching. The air temperature and the water temperature are usually matching. So with that in mind, if you're there to support an athlete, whether it's spectating or whether it is actual support on the bike or run, really all they need from you is just cheering them on as they enter the water and as they exit coming out. I mean, you can help them to T1. I can't imagine they'd need a whole lot of help. They're going to be as fresh as they can be, especially compared to the other events where they're freezing getting out. This one's a nice change. So they'll get out. Wetsuits may or may not be mandatory. That'll probably be a race day call, a race morning call. It's going to be right on the edge. So I would recommend as support, remind them to bring their wetsuits for sure. And then at least you have them, because they will definitely help them if they have them. Skin or swim skins definitely will help streamline the body if the wetsuit's not allowed. So they're out of the water and on to T1, transition one, from swim to bike. Now the bike course, for those of you that have been to the Big Island and done the big dance that's there in October, we're quite a bit different from that. Sorry about all the dings in the background here, guys. We're quite a bit different from that in the way that our swim is way north of Kaluakona down there in the bay. We're at Hapuna Beach. So our bike actually, instead of going up the west coast, our run goes up the west coast towards Hawi, but our bike actually goes south just a little bit and goes across the island on Saddle Road up towards the base of Mauna Kea. Now we do not go up Mauna Kea. We go across the island over towards Hilo and turn around and come back. And our bike course, although very, very hard, is really essentially only 2 big climbs. That's it. And they are super long and ridiculously hard. There's over 10,000 feet of climbing, but that's the bike course. So going back to T1 though, you can help your athlete if you're support and just get all their stuff on and get onto the bike, but it's really no different than any other triathlon. Like I said, they're not cold. The weather should be pretty good. I mean, we'd be extremely unlucky if there were any big storms rolling through. But this is kind of a rain or shine event. I mean, if there's lightning and it's really bad, it'll be delayed, possibly canceled, but I don't see that as ever being an issue. I've been to Hawaii going on, I think, half a dozen times now. There's always a little rain that rolls through clouds. I've only been there when there's been one storm. So certainly they're possible, but they roll through and the weather should be pretty good. So they're on their bike. Typically where support comes in on the bike is any of the pull-offs in Hawaii. There's a lot of big shoulders once they get onto Saddle Road, and I will pull up a map to show you guys where. So going back for just a second, if you don't have support and you're there by yourself or your family's just there cheering you on, you should have no problem getting out of the water, running up to transition and getting on your bike, getting out of there. You can leave your stuff in transition. This is one of the few events where if your support's there and they're not going out on the bike or anything, and people can come in and show us that they're part of your team through identification and they want to clean your stuff up, that's fine. But you're also permitted to just leave your stuff there. This is not a point-to-point race. It's centralized like most tries are. So for us to have people in that central area and have someone just kind of watch transition all day, not that big a deal for us. Versus somewhere like Alaska or Iceland where we're in a completely different area, it just takes a lot of manpower to do that. So this race is lucky that we have that. So if you're by yourself or you don't have support, you can leave your stuff there just like any other try. You go out onto the bike, and you're good to go. So going on to the bike course, this is the maps page. Let me pull up a bike course map. So pulling up this bike course map, you're going to go south just a little bit on the Queen K here. You'll turn onto left onto Waikoloa Road. Now, something that's different with Hawaii, in talking with DOT and a lot of the jurisdictions out there, they actually want, unlike Alaska and Iceland, where we can kind of just do our thing, they need to know about the event, but we're responsible for obeying traffic laws and all that stuff, and it's just like a training ride. This is a little different. As of now, Hawaii is wanting to treat this as an actual race, meaning that this left turn here will most likely, I'm not going to say for sure because things change, will most likely be protected by police, meaning they are, to my best knowledge at this point, going to stop the traffic there to let you turn left. Now, that may change, or if traffic backs up for some reason, they may stop you, or you may have to abide by that traffic signal that's there. So we'll talk more about that in the weeks and months to come, and especially in the briefing. But that's a left turn onto Waikoloa Road. Other than that, you're not really hitting stop signs all that much or anything like that. There are a couple. Just make sure that anytime you're turning or anytime you hit a stop sign or a stoplight, unless a cop is physically waving you on and telling you to ignore that, you have to abide by it. Even if a cop's there and they're not waving you on, that is not permission to go. I was riding in Texas, just a short story, a group ride, Bluebonnet Express ride out there. I believe that was in March, and I wrote it 3 or 4 years ago. And a cop wanted to give 30 or 40 people a ticket because he was at and don't get me wrong, guys, I love cops. I'm just telling you a story here. But he was at the intersection, and he was actually just kind of there watching it, I guess. And we assumed, because it was a ride slash race, whatever you want to call it, that he was actually waving people through. Now that was on us. He was not waving anyone through, but the presence of the officer there led people to believe they could roll through. Now he did write a whole bunch of tickets to people there, and he legally can do that. So we will try to tell you what's going on here, but when you, and we'll have word directly from them what they're doing, but you never know how things change. So when you're out there, be very aware, whether it's police or whatever it is, if someone's waving you through, it's okay to go. But if I were you, I would still be looking left and right to make sure, because a person waving you through, no matter who they are, cannot stop a vehicle that wants to go. So always be responsible for yourself. And if no one's waving you through, then you are absolutely abiding by every traffic law out there. When you're on this course at all times, you are as far over to the right as you can possibly be. Keep in mind that these roads, if there's debris on them, they are most likely lava rock. And lava rock will give you flat tires. That doesn't mean swerve to avoid them at any cost. You never know. It might not give you a flat tire. They are pretty clean most of the time, but there are sections where it'll be more predominant than others. You are absolutely responsible for staying off the road and on the shoulder when at all possible. And when you're not on the shoulder, there needs to be a reason why, whether the shoulder isn't there at that point, whether there's a massive bit of debris that you're avoiding, whatever it is. But as you avoid that, you have to make sure you look over your shoulder. How this plays into support, guys, is that as support, you need to know if you're actually supporting someone on the bike. Remember, it's not mandatory. You need to know that traffic works the same as it would any other day. Cyclists need to abide by that, but they may not. If they don't, be prepared. Maybe that you think they're going to go, or you think they're going to stop and they don't. Be prepared for anything out there if you're doing support for the athletes. So also as support, be aware that there are areas. Now, there's not a lot. A lot of these areas, even with lava rock and dirt, you can pull off in a car especially. But there are some areas with a lot rougher rock. If you pull off that even in a car, you might get a flat tire. There are some drop-off areas. Not a lot. It's relatively flat. Even on the huge climbs, there are I'm sorry about that, guys. There are quite a few areas where even on the large climbs, it's flat, even though it's on an incline. So just use your head. If support's out there, there's a lot of pull-off areas, but there's a lot of areas too where you can get completely off the road, and there's a good 5, 6, 10-foot area of dirt or crushed rock that your car can park safely. There's also a section, big section on Saddle Road going across the island where the shoulder is actually like 2 shoulders, and you can pull all the way off to the right in a car, and there's still like an 8 to 10 foot shoulder that bikes can blow by you on the left and not even be in traffic on the road. So just be aware. And if you're on a car and you're pulling off, you need to be pull-offs in the dirt. Or if there's one of those double shoulder huge areas, you need to pull all the way over to the right, the far shoulder, so there's room to pass on the bike. When you're doing these turns, wherever they are, or you're veering off onto the shoulder, you need to look over your right shoulder, not just on your mirror, but really check those blind spots out, because a bike is a lot harder to see than a car would be over there. Okay. So keep that in mind, guys, as support. If you're not doing support and you're the athlete, the only spot on this course where you're going to have any support from us will be miles 35 and 75 right here. This is where the aid station is going to be, by Puahua Monument or National Park. I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember exactly what that's called there, but it's a parking lot at the base of Mauna Kea. It's not on the Mauna Kea side. It's on the Mauna Loa side. And it's this funky, cool looking, like little mountain thing. It's natural. It's not a man-made structure, but you can see it coming through the lava fields going uphill. You can see it from a mile away. It is awesome. That parking lot there has restrooms and everything. So out of the back of our truck, it's not going to be anything permanent, but out of a vehicle, we will have a lot of stuff, grocery type items, Gatorade, water, bars, gels, everything. So you can hit it at 35. And if you want to chance it at mile 75, you can come back across the road. Now, that being said, Maybe there's a volunteer on 75 over here or on the other side of the road, so you don't have to cross with some things. But we only have permits for certain stuff, guys. We can't set up permanent structures on both sides and have all this stuff everywhere. We're going to run it out of the car on this side. And if you want to come across, if it's safe, we're going to have some people there just kind of looking out for traffic if you need to come back over. And that's worst case scenario. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to structure that, probably have an officer there as well, just to keep everybody safe. Okay. So that's if you don't have any support at all. That's all you get. 35, 75, which is totally doable, guys. Think about that. That's about every 30 to between 30 to 40 miles. You guys do training rides all the time. I guarantee where you carry 2-3 hours of stuff on you. It'll be a little heavy, especially on these climbs. And remember, you're at 65 to 6,600 feet when you're up here at the base of Mauna Kea. We're not climbing Mauna Kea. You'd be up 10, 11,000 feet, whatever the top of that is. I'm sorry. I think it's just over 10,000 actually. So we're not going up there, but 6,600 feet is nothing to laugh at. You're going to be struggling oxygen a little bit. And you're only up there for a short time. You go all the way down here, then you climb back up again. But the weather more than anything. Every time I've been up there, the weather has changed. It's gone from sunny to cloudy to rainy. The storm once was up there. We went through like 3 cloud layers at one time when we went up there. So just be aware, as an athlete without support, this part here from 30 to 80 is going to be rough, potentially. Okay. Support, again, anywhere in here where you can pull off safely, just make sure you get the heck off the road. And when you're out of your car offering support, if you have support, make sure that you are right by your car. We don't want you on that shoulder getting in the way of bikers. We don't want you in the road. We're not playing around in the road. I guarantee you that if we make mistakes and we have support or kids or pets or people that should not be out in that road supporting people or playing around, if we have that, we're never going to be welcome back. And we don't want that. We want to be respectful to the island, the people here, and we want them to say, wow, those guys, we barely even knew they were there. Of course they can come back. That's what we want. Okay. So kids and pets need to stay in the cars. Okay. If support is an adult getting out, they're registered support. They can get out. They can run alongside the bike very slowly. If the athlete slows down to do a bottle hand up and you're rolling alongside and running with them for 10, 15, 30 feet, whatever it is, hand up the bottle, grab their old one. That's fine. As an athlete, if your support's there and you actually want to pull off next to the car, take a little rest, pee, do whatever, and actually just get off the bike for a minute, that's fine too. We recommend if you're going to do that, you actually use the pull-offs. And in fact, we recommend pull-offs more than anything all the time. But we realize, especially on this course, there's not a ton of them. So you will have to use the shoulder more than any of our other events. Okay. So for support on the bike, I mean, that's really about it. We're going to go ahead and say, I think I have it written down, but between just over 20 and just before 90 is the only place that we're going to be offering support on this course. Okay, guys, you have to be on the Saddle Road, this highway that goes all the way across the island. You cannot be on any of these connecting roads offering support, just the long stretch here from mile, I believe it's 21 to 89. Okay. So everyone else, it's pretty simple. No support, just the one stop on both sides. All right. Going back to, sorry guys. All right, there we go. Run course. Support for the run course. You have 3 options. Let me go back to that. So of course, since you don't have to have support at any point during this race, one of the options is that you don't have to have support. So that's option number 1, no support. You run the entire thing by yourself. All 26.2 miles, mostly in the dark, all by yourself. I do not recommend that. Lars last year ran it. He actually ran our harder course that we ended up changing from just because, surprisingly, even late at night, the couple of villages that were along that course had a lot of traffic. I did not know that the hotels where a lot of the people work that live in those villages changed shifts twice during our run course. So that made it really pretty dangerous over there. So we changed the course Um, and you're going to go up towards Hy-Vee. It's the same road pretty much the entire time. You make what's kind of a couple turns, but essentially it just kind of follows the same direction north towards Hy-Vee. It's the top end of the bike course from the World Championships. So we don't go all the way up to Hy-Vee. That would be too far. It just wouldn't work. But there's a fair amount of climbing. There's not a ton. We want to make sure that you guys can finish this event. And after that bike course, I think any step you take is going to be hard, let alone a marathon, let alone 1,500 feet of climbing. So first option, no support. Don't recommend it. It's going to be dark for most of you the entire time. You're going to get lonely out there. Get some support. It'd be great. Option 2, full support. Whoever you have as support that's registered and going to do the run with you, they're doing the entire run. They're not signed up to do the whole run with you and only doing part of it because they realize they're tired or whatever. Whole thing, all or nothing. Okay. So if you're running the whole thing, you better be in shape to do it. Keep in mind, support runners, you do not have to be at your absolute best as far as speed and endurance. You do have to be at your best, I think, as far as strength at any of the X tries, because it comes down to elevation grades and what that adds up to most of the time. And it's more strength based because the athlete that you're running with in most situations is not going to, at that point, be breaking any land speed records. So they're going to be running pretty slow, walking a lot for most people. As long as support is able to go that distance and has the strength to do the climbing on most of these courses, you're good to go. So that's a second option, full support entire time. Third option, full support, but with 2 different runners. So we identify, and I think we put this out there, but we will in the coming months. We identify a spot where you could park a car. And if you had 2 support runners that were registered and they wanted to basically do a relay to do the whole thing and support you, as an athlete, you're running the whole thing. As support, 2 of them are involved. One athlete starts the run and runs to the designated parking lot along the course. And then the second runner drives a car to that parking lot and gives the keys to the first runner, tags them in. The second runner starts the run and finishes that second half with the athlete. And the first runner that finished the first half gets in the car and drives it back and waits for them at the finish. So it's effectively just a relay mixed along with the athlete doing the whole thing. No car left in that exchange parking lot. Option 4, half support. This is harder logistically. If you have a support runner registered that wants to run, but they don't want to do the whole thing, and you don't have 2 to split it up, you only have 1, they want to do half, whether they want to run the first half and you run the second half by yourself, or whether they want you to run the first half by yourself and they bring you in for the second half, they're going to have to be involved at that parking lot we designate as the exchange point for what was the previous option. So let's say that they want to run the first half with you. They run the first half to that parking lot. You're going to run in yourself. How do they get back? Somebody's got to be there in a car to pick them up. We're not bringing them back. If it's the other option and they were to take themselves out there in a car to the parking lot, park, and then run in with you, how do you get back to that car? At best, maybe you have another car and you guys drive yourself out there to pick it up. We don't want that. We don't want the cars parked there, taking up spaces. These parking lots are there for a reason. We're not going to leave cars there. So the only option in both situations is if you have someone to either drop you off so you can run the second half or pick you up after you've run the first half. Those are the only options for running half of it with the athlete. Okay. Obviously, support teams are recommended because it just makes the whole hydration, nutrition thing easier. Sure, you can do it by yourself, but none of you are going to have a perfect day. From my perspective, I don't think anyone will. If you do, congratulations. But none of you are. And usually that's attributed to hydration, nutrition, not going as planned, weather, kicking your butt, whatever. And at that point, you're going to need something. And if you don't have support, you're likely not going to be able to get it. It's going to be highly unlikely that that time of need happens when you're at an aid station. It's going to be in between them. Okay. So just keep that in mind. If you want to chance it or you're tough enough and you can get through it, then by all means, please join us. They help tracking and motivating and monitoring the athlete and all that too. 2 is always better than 1, strength in numbers, especially at night. It's great to have more than 1 out there. And that's why when you watch any other events that happen at night, in the triathlon world. People usually pair up. They find people on the course, they start talking, and it's all good. So that's why we put support out there too. They make good mules. Anything extra you need during the event, throw it on them to carry it, whether it's in the car or whether it's on the run. They can carry their own supplies on the run and then carry more of yours in addition to what you're carrying for yourself. More the merrier, kind of what I talked about before. And future, there's a typo here, guys. This is supposed to be Hawaii, but it says Iceland. But future Hawaii finishers or Alohaman finishers. A lot of the people that we have finish year to year are the previous year's support. And then we also see athletes come back and then be the support for their support. So it's great. And we love to see people return to the race in any way, shape, or form. So, when we talked about the rules on the bike and on the run, really just some other things that you may have to do is driving the athlete around, carrying their bags, getting stuff for them if you have support or if you are the support, getting them to the meetings, reminding them of schedules, planning things out. They're going to kind of be a head case for some of this if they're like anybody else. So just keeping them in it, making sure they know they can do it. Just getting them along on the course and getting them to that finish line. So we went over, I think, most of these rules. If you do have support, they'll get a t-shirt that they're supposed to wear that will identify them at the swim exit, at T1, at T2 on the bike course. They don't have to run with it. If you're going to have support on the run, it's just a wristband to identify that support runner. If you have more than one support runner at once, it is what it is at that point. As long as they're registered and one of them has the wristband, we're good. We don't expect anyone to wear the shirt. It's going to be probably cotton, maybe tech, but still, we don't expect anyone to wear that, just a wristband. Now, if you are splitting the run, we would expect that you hand off that wristband so we know it's registered support. You can do that by thinking ahead. When we give you the wristband, if we try to put it on you, stop us. We may just put it in your bag, whatever. But in any event, safety pin it so you can unpin it and pin it to the second person. That will solve the problem of how the hell do I get this thing off? It's clamped on here, and then you don't have to cut it and everything. Okay, so that's that. One of the main things on the bike, I don't know if I've mentioned it, if you do have support, just make sure your support knows they are in no means meant or allowed to follow you with blinkers on. I'm sorry, I've done 3 of these webinars for the events today. I can't remember if I mentioned it for this event, but it's a good chance to repeat it. If I did mention it, that do not follow, no blinkers on. You're going the speed limit. The only time it is okay to not go the speed limit is if a bike is in your way. You do not want to run them down, obviously. So the bike is in your way. You cannot pass them. It is not safe to do so. You are then keeping a safe distance and obviously under the speed limit. When it is safe to pass, you are to do so and get back up to speed. You will be written a ticket if you are found following a bike. Whether your flashes are on or not is irrelevant. You will be given a ticket if you are found following next to a bike. Behind it or next to it doesn't matter. It's not any different. In fact, next to it may be more dangerous. So keep traffic moving. If you're doing support, you're leapfrogging your athlete to stop points along the way that you've pre-identified with your athlete. And that's how it's going to work, guys. Keep in mind that any penalties assessed to the athlete for any reason or to the support team, if support's penalized, it goes to the athlete. That's just how it is. And most of these penalties, guys, are not time penalties. They are just disqualifications. This is a serious event. It is very extreme. There are potentials for wrecks and for medical cases that are above and beyond worse than other events that are not extreme. We're not messing around. You break the rules. The consequences in most cases are that you're disqualified. Okay? So, that's it, I guess. I mean, keep in mind, have fun out there. If you're doing it by yourself, no support, you can't handle this. You do have to be tough as nails. I will tell you that now, mentally and physically. But if you don't have support, you can do it. Just make sure you plan it out. Make sure you practice and you train going long periods for what would be the mileage during the race. You're going to have to go between aid stations, water stops, nutrition. Make sure you're used to going that distance without, if you're going to go without support. If you're not, make sure you're planning. Make sure they're listening to this. Make sure you read the whole website. They know everything you do, okay? It is literally the difference between your success and your failure on race day. And this course is a lot different from the other ones that we have, Alaska and Iceland. They're all so different. But with Alaska and Iceland, it is more extreme. I will say that. The terrain is more extreme. For Hawaii, you are on paved roads the entire time. You are swimming in non-cold water. It is like a bath when you're in there. But you are in an extreme environment overall. There are volcanoes, there's lava rock. The altitude actually is the highest of any of our events, getting up to 6,600 feet high. So you will have problems breathing. The weather is going to get crazy out there. And just overall, the amount of climbing on the bike in and of itself is extreme. So all of those things added up, plus the fact you're running almost the entire run course for most of you at night, that's extreme. It messes with your head. So you don't always need the off-road stuff, the animals, the crazy terrain for something to be extreme. This is going to be hard. And for some of you that have done the World Championship, in and of its own right, it's very difficult, but this is very different. You have not gone through the middle of the island, and you have not run the top part of the bike course. So keep that in mind. Have some fun. See you soon, guys.